Hello everyone, welcome to this video lesson. Here we are going to learn about the angular equality function. The angular equality function is called whenever a value of an angular signal changes. Now this angular equality function is called with the previous value of the signal and the current value of the signal. Then a check is made on these two values to see if they are the same. If these two values are the same, then the angular equality function will return true, which will make that value of the signal to not be updated. But if the two values are not equal, then angular equality function will return false, which will make the value of that signal to be updated. So you see, this angular equality function provides a ground for performance boost in our application, which makes it very important because a signal will only emit a new value if the new value that we are trying to emit is different than the previous one. Inbuilt, the angular equality function uses the triple equality operator to make its check. Okay, to demonstrate how the equality function works on angular signals, I have created two signals, the counter signal and the derived counter signal. I purposely created this derived counter signal so that we can get a log on our console whenever the value of the counter signal changes. See here we have the increment method, which is called by this button, and also inside it we update the value of the counter signal by 1 or by an increment of 1. So we are updating the value of the counter signal by calling this set method. We can also update the value of a signal by calling the update method. Now whenever we call this, the equality function will be run. So this equality function is run to check if the previous value and the current value entering into the signal, to check if they are the same. Also, it will be useful to note that the equality function in angular signals uses the triple referential operator to make its comparison. Now let's look at what happens whenever we click this increment, and also to see what happens when we set the same value that is equal to the previous value. Now look at, on the initial load of our component, we have called it here logged. So this is logged. Now this tells us that on the initial load of our component, that the previous value and the initial value which was set here are not the same, so which made this to be called. Now it's also useful to note that on the initial load of the signal, its value is undefined. Then when this signal is called and when this counter is computed from here, it will call the equality function. Now this call to the equality function will now have the current value as 8 and the previous value as undefined. Then the equality function will use the triple referential operator to compare the two values, undefined and 8. So this will return false, which will make this counter to be updated. So that's why we have the console.log being logged here on the initial load of our component. Now when we click on this increment method, we will set our counter value to 9. This is because the value returned here will be 8. Then incrementing it by 1 will give us 1. So when this is called, now the equality function will get the previous value of the counter signal, which is 8, and then compare it against the current value coming in, which is 9. Now we know that 9 is not equals to 8. So the equality function will return false. Therefore, it will result to the value of this counter being updated, and we will see a log on our console. Now let's try it. Let's click on increment. So you see we have a log and our counter is updated. Now, if we click on the increment again, this will be called with the value 10. Now, when this method is called, the equality function will be run to check whether to update the counter signal or not. Now, in the check, the equality function we'll have the previous value as 9 and the current value as 10. Now, 9 is not equals to 10, so the equality function will return false, which will make a new value, which is 10, to be updated, to be emitted for the counter signal. So when we click on this button, we'll have 10 here. Now, let's look at what happens when we emit the same value as the previous value and as the current value. Now, let's remove this and set it here. Then our browser reloads and we have our code 8 here. We already know why this happens on the initial load of our component. Now, when we click on this increment, this is called, and the set method will be called with a value of 8. Now, this will trigger the equality function as usual. The equality function will grab the previous value of this counter signal, which will be 8, and then compare it against the current value coming in, which is 8. So 8 is the same thing as 8. It will return true. So the equality function will return true, which means that the current value and the previous value are the same. So no new value will be emitted for the counter signal. So that's why we will not see any log on our console when we click on this increment method. So this increment method is actually called, but we will not see this here because the current value of the counter signal and the previous value are the same. So no new value will be emitted for the counter signal. So we will not see any console log here.